some other people as well along the line. As you know, as always, you can catch the live feed, SportsRap Radio Show, the group page on Facebook.
Yeah.
You can get there right now and tune in and check this out. And listen, it was just that yesterday. Like we talked real quick, briefly last night. Shout out to Frank too. And Frank, I know you was a little angry, and I wasn't worried about that. I know where your initial comments were stemming from with that. But what I wanted to point out to you, we will definitely get it squared away and get it straightened out today, this morning on the show. So first, we'll get into some NBA playoffs. We got NBA playoffs going on right now. Had one game underway last night. We had the Nuggets and the Lakers. The Lakers played a lot better last night. The Nuggets played a lot better last night, only losing by 2 points. And it ended up being a buzzer beater that they lost on. So that was better for them. That final score was 105-103. And they now find themselves down 2-0, 0-2, however you want to say it. Their next game is tomorrow, game 3, tomorrow. I'll give you the times and everything. I'll post that later on down the line. And we also got the Eastern Conference Finals going on, Celtics and the Heat. The Celtics took game 3, and now that series is 2-1. Miami. They resume play on Wednesday, which I think is very odd for the way they've been doing things in the bubble.
Everything's
that long, that long stretch. It's like, it kind of reminds me of that one year when the Sixers were playing Boston in the playoffs with the Big Three. I think it was their last run, the Big Three. And we had them down. And we could have taken a commanding lead. But for some reason, that long extended break came into play and gave those guys some rest. And then they came back and finished this off. So it kind of reminded me of that. We got some WNBA games yesterday. There were 2 games scheduled. One game was postponed because of a storm threat down in Florida. So the Sun knocked off the Aces 87-62. The Lynx and the Storm, that game was postponed, and I think they'll be playing again. They'll be playing tonight or tomorrow night. In hockey, we are into the Stanley Cup Finals. Game 1, I think it was Saturday. The Lightning fall to the Stars 4-1. Tonight's game is game 2 for the Stanley Cup Finals, the Lightning versus the Stars. In Major League Baseball, the Phillies fall to the Blue Jays 6-3 yesterday. They move on to go and play the Nationals starting tonight. Looking at the news, not a lot of news except for everything that's going on in the NFL right now. The only other thing, one bright spot that I think is a bright spot, Deion Sanders is named and will have a presser today to make it official to become the head football coach at Jackson State. So I haven't really talked about that much. Like I said, I saw it when I was moving around, and I kind of saw it, kind of really didn't pay a lot of attention to it, because a lot of times you get those reports when you get them and you think, I don't know about this. Somebody could be pulling the strings a little bit here. But we found out that it is official. And with now knowing that it is official, I think that it's a good move for Deion Sanders for primetime. Also a good move for Jackson State.
Yeah.
And people might say why, and I'm sure my partner already understands why.
I know why.
But if you don't understand why, just a little bit to take with you on this topic. HBCU getting an African American NFL player who played in a non-HBCU college. Okay, so his knowledge from that particular standpoint, and of course his knowledge from the pros, and doing everything that he's been doing outside of football until this point, it will be very beneficial for those kids down there. It's a face that looks like theirs. It's somebody that a lot of those players, I'm not going to say a lot because we're in a different group now, but they know who he is. It might not be to the magnitude that we know him, as far as his career and things like that.
He's remained relevant.
Yeah, they know who he is, and they'll probably resort to him and his knowledge on NFL Network and on the TV. But we can go further. Like I said, we can go into his pro career and into his college career. And if any of you are listening, you want to get a little bit more understanding of what we say or what I mean when I talk about the difference. Like a lot of these younger kids now don't do enough of homework on people that are around them that they may come in contact with. You're going to have to Google it because I can't remember the exact title of the documentary right offhand. But there was a video a while, I think it was last year sometime, towards the end or the middle of last year. I'm sure you remember, I think we talked about it on air, when Deion went back to Florida State and talked to them. As a matter of fact, it was a few years ago because Jalen Ramsey had just left or he was about to leave and he was there talking to Deion. And the words that he gave them at that particular moment about himself and about how to proceed on to the next level and how to proceed on with their current career at that time was very beneficial. And some of the things that he said to some people may sound or may come off a little arrogant if you really don't know Deion, but if you listen to those comments and then you do what he says in some of those comments, you'll understand a lot better. And what I'm leaning to is there's a point in there, and I'm just paraphrasing right now, people, where he talks about him being at Florida State, and he tells the kids there, listen, when I was here, I was the man. I wanted to be the man. And you walk through these hallways, you're going to see 21 all over the place. He said, you can go in that film room, and I forget the particular year. He said, well, matter of fact, you can pick any year from the time frame that he was there. Go pick any reel of tape, and you will see 21 all over that tape. Now, what I felt like that did for those kids there, well, it gave them the incentive and the mind frame that if you want to be the best, you got to put in the work.
Right.
Plain and simple.
Right.
And you know, his whole thing was at that particular point, he wanted to be the best. So he didn't care if you were his brother, like he said, if your mother was in the stands, your girlfriend, your wife, whatever was in the stands. When we step in between that chalk, I'm coming to kick your butt.
Correct.
And when we get out the chalk, we back to who we are.
Cool.
We're cool again. But you know, it's a mind frame, and I think that will help a lot of them in the long run, moving forward with their careers. And I think it's going to help some of those kids down there at Jackson State. And like I said, you got a Hall of Famer now becoming your football coach. So take everything he says.
Yeah,
and keep it with you.
He not to cut you off, Dave, but he the one thing I remember watching that was when he explained to them. He explained to them like his why. You know what I mean? Why he was so adamant about being the best. He's like, man, I was doing this was for my mama. You know what I mean? This is for my mama. Everything I was doing was for my mama. So it equates with players. It connects to the players. You know what I mean? In a way that a lot of kids don't really get a chance to be able to touch those individuals. Absolutely. And it's kind of funny because my little cousin, I think it was Markeith, you know, their foundation. So their foundation had put something up where, you know, they was doing some stuff with the kids or whatever. And I sent him a message. I said, listen, I said, what you doing right now, I said, I love it. I said, the fact that they can see you and touch you makes the impossible possible.
Absolutely.
They're going through the same thing y'all went through as young kids. Like it's a scrape. It's how you try to define who you're going to be as an individual and also as an athlete. You know what I mean? And with Deion being he's already an instant motivator.
Yeah.
It's in his character.
Yeah.
But now, not only is he a motivator, but he got the track record, the know-how.
Right.
So he can really go off of seeing if you BSing, you don't want it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't want it.
I think that's what that
And
what you
that's
just
the
said,
main thing, man.
I think what you just said is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, point in that whole entire scenario, where people will overlook that and take that for granted when we hear about all these other coaches that have history, the
Right.
Coach K's and Bo Schembechlers and all these
Mhm.
guys that have had great careers. But a lot of times, or more times than not, they don't have the full elite track
Right.
record
Right.
that Dion has. And I'm not saying that they haven't played, because I know some of them didn't really play a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But again, a lot of them don't have, listen to what I'm saying, the elite track record
Yeah.
that Dion has. And I stress that word elite
Mm-hmm.
because, like you said, he can very easily tell you, or he can take them on a trip to Florida
Mhm.
State and
Yeah.
go in there and watch those tapes.
And show
they
and
can
showed
see.
you.
He
Yeah.
can show it. And also, like you said, Baldy, he can watch them, look at them, and know if they want it or not.
Yeah, he can definitely
He can
see it.
definitely pick it out a lot easier than some of these other coaches.
Right.
Like I said, it's no discredit to these other coaches. They can pick out things with their players and whatnot or whatever. But none of them have the magnitude that Dion will have with the background that he has.
And think about it like this. Think about it like this. You also have a player. One, he's a Hall of Famer.
Mhm.
Two, quarterbacks in the league feared this dude.
Yep.
Did not even throw wherever he was at. They was throwing the other way.
Absolutely.
But he was also a track star.
Yep.
So now he's going to equate that same regimen, that same regimen of speed, because speed is everything.
Yep.
You know, the speed in the NFL is built off of speed and strength. Everything else they can kind of teach you.
Yep.
If you're fast and you're strong, we can teach you how to
teach you.
read and react
Yep.
much quicker and become
And the superior athleticism.
yeah
Being a baseball player and playing in with crossover seasons. Remember, Atlanta Falcons, Atlanta Braves.
Right,
He
right,
was
right.
playing football on Sundays and then getting in a helicopter
And out,
going
yeah.
to, to play with the Braves, or catching
Right.
them up, or getting back in swing with the Braves until football season ended. So
I mean, I love the listen. I know the benefit of playing just on a high school level with a coach who had NFL knowledge.
right.
My head coach played in Super Bowl 1 and 2. You know what I mean? And what he brought to us, even as a line, our line was learning like NFL type things. That
Yep.
we were a team that was 4-6 the year before. The next year we was 8-2.
Yeah.
So to have someone who's done it, not saying that if you're coaching and you haven't played on a collegiate level does not mean you can't coach college players.
Right.
It's just it's some nuances in the game that both player and coach can kind of reminisce on
Yes.
if I as a coach did it.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And I can go through a whole detail of seeing it and then explaining it to a player. But there's a thing about a feeling or emotion that's connected to it that if you didn't do it,
That's right.
this player's going to know.
Look, I was just thinking that. I was just getting ready to say,
Players
and
gonna know.
and the both of us being coaches, we know
You're going to know.
we know the attitudes and we know the body mechanics of these kids when we sitting there talking to them. And initially, for some of them, it's like, for real, Coach Ball, like for real.
Yeah, like,
And then it's like, okay, now when I get out here and I show you this stuff, then it clicks like,
It clicks.
oh, crap, yeah.
it definitely clicks.
He might have been able, And when I was coaching basketball, I always took my practice gear with me. I wouldn't go in with basketball gear on. I would go in as a coach, but I always had my bag. So at any point, any given
moment, you can lace up.
This what y'all want to do? This how
Yeah.
y'all want to handle practice?
Uh-huh.
All right. Well, we gonna scrimmage. You, Malik, or whoever my top guys was, you take whoever you want and give me everybody else. I guarantee you we gonna beat y'all.
You hear that, Malik?
Guarantee you we gonna beat y'all.
Alvin?
Yes. And that's
You
the
hear
way
that,
it used to be. And some of the other guys.
But
it
you
was like
got
that.
to, though.
But that's part that's where you really, really become a coach and reap the benefits of being a coach, because I can get out here like that old cliche saying, I can show you better than I can tell
Right,
you.
right.
And a lot of times with our kids, you have to show them along with telling them. Some of them will get it when you tell them, but then you've got others that have to be shown. In some instances, they have to be touched. And I don't mean it in a bad way, parents, so don't get upset. It's not like that.
Ain't no Sandusky
right.
going on.
I mean, it's physical nature of the game of basketball. Sometimes you have to get out there and show them this is the kind of contact you're going to get as you progress. So you know what you're going to get now with kids your size. At some point, you're going to be playing somewhere, if you pursue it, where kids are going to be bigger than you.
Right.
And you have to know this because it's coming.
It's definitely coming.
And if you're not prepared for it, puts you a step and a half, almost 2 steps behind the other kids that were prepared for it.
Listen to this. Let's go back, right? Let's rewind the clip, a tape from, and if anybody's listening or watching right now, if you watched our show for a very long time, we had a couple people on, but when Raheem came on, the commissioner, shout out to my man 50 Grand, he said something that we laughed so hard about, which was crazy, because he said we have players out here, we have kids out here that are trying to get better, and we have trainers out here that are charging these parents and these kids to help them get better. He said you can't be no trainer out here with Timberland boots on.
Absolutely.
And and you all out here he said, and then you got trainers that's on the side just pointing and telling them, no, you got to be out here, you got to be touching, you got to be bumping them, you got to prepare them, and that's what we talking about.
Absolutely.
And that's 2 years ago we had that conversation. Still relevant now.
Yeah,
it's still
not
relevant.
Longer than 2 years.
It's a lot longer.
Yeah.
And you got to remember that in a whole, when it comes to playing basketball, it's not as physical as football.
No.
But it's quick hitch movement, along with bumping, pushing, elbows, everything that comes along with it. And then you got players out there that's just really out there trying to hurt you. So how you going to function with that? So all that stuff kicks in.
Yep.
Basketball still to this day is probably one of the most refined sports because it requires you to do, it's 3-dimensional. And what I mean by that, and if anybody, you're listening and you're watching, basketball in a whole is 3-dimensional because you have to go, you're jumping up, you're coming down, you're moving forward, you're moving back, you're moving side to side. It's just like a directional D-pad.
Yep.
And sometimes you hit the floor and you got to get back up. So it's in 3 dimension, where a lot of stuff in football is forward, back, side to side. According to what position you play, you got to jump. You're going to be doing that more often. But most running backs ain't jumping up. Every once in a while they jump over somebody. But the physicality of the sport, it's kind of well, we look at the league now and it's a little soft. But it's still physical. And the physical guys in the league right now, they get a bad rep.
Well, we saw the physical of the game. Speaking of the NBA, we saw that in game 1. Nuggets Lakers.
Yeah.
Definitely saw it there.
Yeah, it's soft.
It was, I think, a surprise to Jokic and Murray. And no discredit to them. They are stars or budding stars in their own right. But you're playing guys who are, or at one time were, legit stars. And I mean, the LeBrons and ADs are the stars right now. But at one point, Dwight Howard was a star.
He was.
Okay? So that physical nature that he's bringing, it is just what the doctor ordered,
and
so to speak.
He would have been so great if he just remained a defensive player.
Yep.
He would have been an elite guy.
Every
and
time,
we say that all the time.
Every time I talk to somebody about Dwight Howard, you know what I'm getting ready to go. I always revert back to Patrick Ewing being an assistant coach on that Orlando team. And Patrick Ewing said, if this kid would get out of the weight room and spend more time on the court, at that particular time, he could have been the best center in the league.
Well, let's remember, too, there was a particular time when they were in Orlando. It was yeah, when he was in Orlando, and you had Rashard Lewis was on that team too. I believe Turkaloo was on that team. And I don't know if you remember, but everybody on that team just got big as hell.
Yeah.
And what happened later was there was some sort of enhancement
Right.
that came up on the NBA line. Now, Jameer ain't had nothing to do with that. Jameer had nothing to do with that. He naturally got bigger, but there was some stuff with Dwight Howard and Rashard Lewis,
Right.
where they was taking specific products. And but like you said, had he ever like refined his game, because Orlando tried to make him an offensive player,
Right.
but you couldn't run the ball through him because his skill set offensively was limited.
Right.
That team was Jameer Nelson team.
Yeah.
But that team also had the snipers. Like they had shooters. That Orlando team was strapped. If he would have said, I'm going to go out here and dominate these boards, I'm going to do a Rodman and get you 25 rebounds or 20 rebounds, and just focus on that putbacks and getting it, I think they would have. I think that they would have won that chip or been in contention to win that chip. They had a hell of a team, man.
They did.
They had a hell of a
And
team.
that type of talent is kind of overlooked right now because of the way the NBA has changed. And it's a shame because those were great times.
They were a great time.
For us as basketball fans.
Basketball was good.
Those were great times.
Basketball was good.
So I got some announcements. The WNBA gave out their awards, their league awards. Aja Wilson of the Aces wins the league MVP. Crystal Dangerfield of the Lynx wins Rookie of the Year. And Coach of the Year goes to Crystal's coach, Cheryl Reeve of the Minnesota Lynx. So now, since we got that out the way, and we got some other stuff that we're going to get to, we're going to get to these scores. Going back to Thursday, the Battle of Ohio, Cleveland takes that 35-30. We move into yesterday's games, and like I said, we got a lot to talk about.
Yes, we do, brother.
Yesterday's games, and not just our particular teams in that respect, but about what happened yesterday throughout the entire NFL. We start off, the Giants fall to the Bears 17-13. A lot of few key mistakes down the stretch for young guy Daniel Jones. So it's probably going to be another tough, long season for the Giants unless they get that fixed. Dallas miraculously comes back and beats Atlanta 40-39. Screw up in that game. We'll talk a little bit about that at the end, towards that end of that game. And I can't not give them credit because they did it as bad as I want to because it's Dallas. But I have to give them credit. They paid attention to detail.
They did.
In that last play. And we'll talk about that once we get through the scores and get back to it. Green Bay put a whooping on Detroit 42-21. Tennessee edges out Jacksonville 33-30. Indianapolis beats Minnesota 28-11. Another, as we like to say here, typical game for Kirk Cousins after having some success last year and week one. Yesterday he looked like the Kirk Cousins from the old Washington Redskins that we were used to.
Yeah, pretty much.
Miami falls to Buffalo 31-28. San Francisco beats the Jets 31-13. The Rams come cross country and beat up on my Eagles 37-19. Denver falls to Pittsburgh 26-21. Carolina falls to Tampa Bay 31-17. The Washington football team loses to Arizona 30-15. KC, in a tough one, edges out the Chargers 23-20. Baltimore beats up once again on Houston 33-16. And the Sunday night game, a saving game by the Seattle Seahawks, they edge out New England 35-30. Completing tonight's schedule, or this week's schedule, week 2 schedule, New Orleans at Las Vegas, 8:15 tonight. So, before we get into the injuries, and part of the injuries can go into this game, we talk a little bit about that Dallas-Atlanta game. I am shocked with Atlanta to an extent, but I've seen this before from them. I've seen it from them on the biggest game in the NFL season, Super Bowl against the Patriots. They were up big and ended up losing that game. Now, you let this team come back, and mind you, Dallas is suffering the injury bug too. They've got, I think, I heard Ian Rappaport say they've got like 5 starters that are out, but nonetheless, they are hit with the injury bug as well as a bunch of other teams in the league. So we can't use the injury bug as an excuse for teams winning or losing of that nature, because it's all throughout the NFL.
Yeah.
But what I want to get to is we have to remember, and we talk about this all the time, and we sometimes laugh about it, and we say that some of these guys get to the pros after playing football for a good portion of their life, starting out in Pee Wee leagues. And then they get to the pros, and sometimes they forget or lose sight of fundamentals, basic football. And this entails with the rules as well. So if you don't know what I'm referring to, late in that game, Dallas got the ball back. They got it to within, I think, 3, 2, whatever, 4 points or whatever. Whatever they got it. They got it real close. They had the opportunity, and we all know onside kick is coming. They got the time. They got a chance to win this game, steal it. Onside kick is coming. We know that. We as fans watching it on TV, the few people that were in the stands know it. Okay? So we all know rules of the onside kick. The kicking team cannot touch the ball until it goes 10 yards. On the flip side of that, the receiving team can basically touch the ball right off the tee.
Right.
And I'm just exaggerating when I say right off the tee, but put it in layman's terms, as soon as the ball is kicked, they can go and get it. So, if you watch that play, as you see, the Cowboys players are doing their due diligence. They know the kick is coming. They're watching the kick. They're watching it bounce. They're watching it bounce. And then it's like almost a shocker to them. They're looking at none of the Falcons are actually making a move to the ball. It goes to 10 yards, and they jump on the ball. And then the Falcons want to try and get into it. Actually, when that Dallas player attempts to go in to grab the ball, that's when they start to go in. So I can't really say that you could fault Dan Quinn, because after that post-game shows, I heard people saying that it's really going to be a hot seat for Dan Quinn right now. I don't know if you can really put that on him, because, like I said, us sitting at home, if you watch that game when you got bonus coverage or whatever, you knew that the onside kick was coming. They got a chance to win a game after losing in week 1. Got a chance to win. So the onside kick is coming. You know it.
You know it's coming.
Okay? You know it. Even if they line up for the onside kick and don't go do the onside kick, you see it in front of you, so you have to be expecting it as far as the receiving team, at worst. There's no reason, really, conceivable reason for that to happen.
It should have never happened.
It's a mental block, a huge mental block on that team.
And the question is, well, what is going on in that huddle prior to it? Like, you know, like special teams wise, everybody in the world watching that game knows the onside kick is coming.
It's coming.
So how is it that you have this delayed reaction? You have a delayed reaction to the movement of the ball. Like, I don't get that.
Yeah. Like I said, you just standing there watching it, and it's like, you've got to know, they've got to wait 10 yards before they can touch it. They're kicking the ball to you.
So you come on out, go get it.
I mean, they don't call it the hands
team. The lights get real bright, boy, when that game
right. They don't call it the hands team for nothing.
Yeah.
You know, you put your hands team out there, you there for a reason. Go get the ball. I mean, you got to get the ball to win, to have an opportunity to win.
Yeah.
And you're already up. In my opinion, it makes it more important that you go and get the ball. This team just drove down and scored on you.
I just don't get it. I don't get it.
And you have to, in the back of your mind, you know your mishap with that 2-point conversion that was failed.
Mm-hmm.
Which at that point, if you had converted that 2-point conversion, it probably wouldn't have mattered if they got the ball and scored again or not.
Or not, right.
You would have probably been up 4, and you would have just had to let your defense hold them to a field goal and still come away with the edgy win. But even in that right, onside kick, and you just don't even make an attempt to go after the ball, it's mind-boggling to me.
Listen, like you said, you get paid to do a job, and if your job, first of all, if you're on special teams, 9 times out of 10, you ain't on the field no other time except for when the ball's getting kicked off, a kick return, kick off, punt return, or a punt.
Yep.
So you should be completely
focused,
tied to detail.
Absolutely.
Now, when the hands is in, those are receivers.
Yep.
That's your receiver core. So it's like, come on, my man, come on, like, come on.
You gonna stay in there and watch?
And it wasn't even just one of them just standing there.
Like you worked for Kodak or somebody,
So that can't go down to the coaching.
Right, it can't.
That some things you can blame coaches for, but then there's other things, man. The players have to do their job, and if the players don't do their job, naturally it makes the coach look bad. But players got to be held responsible for what they do and don't do as well. You know what I mean? Like, so that's a part of it. You know what I mean? That's definitely a part of it.
It's a major part of it. So now that we got that out of the way, and again, as much as it kind of stings a little bit, but kudos to the Cowboys special teams for doing what they were supposed to do.
Messing up everybody's brackets.
And I was just gonna say before we move on, I was just gonna say, we have the other old cliche: you only had one job. On special teams, you got 2 jobs. You either get the ball or you make a tackle.
Right.
Those are your 2 jobs on special teams. Like you just said, it's either kickoff, kick returns, punts, or punt returns.
Stay in your lane.
You either make the tackle or you get the ball. You make the tackle or you get the ball.
No, hey, listen, so I got my brother and my man Harry on here, and they saying specific things. You just fall on the ball and do you think? And my brother says, "Well, look, man, it's only week 2, and no more excuses about this week 2, bro.
Listen,
no more excuses.
We in it now.
No more excuses. These games count."
I just had a couple people chime in on me, and one said that the coach,
you got a kamikaze mission
special teams coach, has to take the fall for that. No,
you can't.
The coaching at that point, I think, is not completely, but it's a good portion of coaching that's out of that. Like Baldy just said, you're on the field, hands team. They call it the hands team for a specific reason. And for you to just stand there and watch the ball, and don't get me wrong, people, I understand over the past few years how we are totally still confused about some of the calls that are made in football, and it's starting to trickle into basketball a little bit now too, but more so football, where you can easily argue and say we still don't know what a pass interference is. We still don't know what a completed catch is.
Right.
In a lot of instances in the NFL. But that particular instance, nothing has changed. It's a kickoff. It's an onside kick. The rules have been the rules. Those rules have not been changed at all, except for the kickoff being moved up a little bit as far as where they kick off from. Not a major change. You just moved the ball up. It's still the same concept.
Everything remains
onside kick. The ball gets kicked. Kicking teams got to wait 10 yards and before they can touch it. And like you said, the offensive team, the team that's receiving the ball, you can go get it whenever you want. That's why a lot of times you see when onside kicks start kicked and they're bounced up into the air, you see that first wave with a receiving team go run and jump and get it at its highest point off the bounce. And I know it didn't go 10 yards before it bounced.
Oh, right. Right.
Now, a lot of times when they kick that bounce, they are looking for it to carry 10 yards for that kicking team to catch up and possibly get in the mix and come up with a scramble and get the ball back. So I fault that all on the hands team, or as we could say now, the no hands team.
The no hands.
Because they didn't use their hands at all. They just used their eyes in that whole instance. So I also, just to top off some of the injuries that we're going to talk about, some of the major injuries, and this one can be plumped right into the major injuries. I just got a ticker. Christian McCaffrey is going to miss multiple weeks. They didn't say a year. They're just going to miss multiple weeks now. So we go back in, and the Denver Broncos, they lost their starting quarterback, Drew Lock. He's out 2 to 6 weeks. Saquon Barkley, it's a fear in Giants land that he tore his ACL. So that means he would ideally be lost for the season. Hence, they're now on the boat for Devontae Freeman, as I posted last week. The Eagles were going to bring him in. The Eagles still bring him in. Just because the Giants don't bring him in because you had him first. So you can actually help yourself and keep your division mate at bay by bringing him in and getting something done. Or at least presenting something very lucrative or very attainable on the table when he comes. So Eagles, get on that and do that. The biggest benefactor of the injury bug was 49ers. And brother, you sent the picture yesterday when we were talking to Frank. You guys have been Mike Tyson with the injury bug.
So dealing with injuries, we all know injuries happen. Injuries is part of the game. That's what it is.
Yep.
But coming into that game, as well as us, we had injuries, and the Jets had injuries. The Jets had just as many injuries as us. It was the quality of players that was injured on our team. So we had more starters that were injured. We got guys on IR that are starters that can't play. So now you come into this game, you lose your best DN. You bring your second guy in DN, he get hurt.
Yep.
D Ford is still out. We lost lad this over the off season.
Yep.
So
Emmanuel Sanders was a free agent. He's gone.
He's gone. So
Mostert got you that 80-yard touchdown. Now he's banged up.
So he's banged up now.
Starting QB.
Our
is
QB,
banged up.
He's banged up. So now you got all these players that normally is carrying your load. Now you're relying on first year players, Brandon Ayuk.
Yep.
That wide receiver. You're hoping that Jordan Reed can come through. He came up big for us or whatever. You know, you got Juszczyk. He's a fullback. Now you're trying to put him at running back along with Devontae. Like, you got all these holes that you got to fill. But in reality, that's just offense.
Yep.
What about defense? The core of who we are.
Yep.
You know what I mean? The reason why we were able to get as many reps as we could last year is because the defense got them 1, 2, 3 out.
Yep.
So your offense could every once in a while mess up and go 1, 2, 3 out, but you knew you had a defense that can get you the ball back. Now you got guys putting together plays, runs, plays. And I mean, that first half against the Jets, I was like, oh, we gonna mess around and lose to these jokers. You know what I mean? We gonna mess around and lose to these jokers. And at any given time, any given day, any given Sunday, players can lose.
Yep.
So it's just teams can lose. So it's just one of them things when you look at the amount of guys that we got hurt, the roles that these guys play, and how long they're going to be out.
Absolutely.
Because in our division, we got y'all coming up, not this week, the following week. We got Carolina on that list. We got, I believe, New England is in that loop.
Yep.
We got the Giants next. So in our next 4 games, I mean, the Giants, to me, because they lost Saquon Barkley, I feel like that's a game we can win. But now when we come to y'all, hopefully, well, y'all come to us. But when we play y'all, if y'all haven't won a game, that's a dangerous game for us.
Absolutely.
Because, again, any given Sunday, and when you got a team, and we still don't have, right, Harry, you right. We still don't have Richard Sherman. He's out too.
And if the Eagles don't have a win going into that game, it makes it that much more important for the Eagles to try and steal that game.
You got to, because it can be a momentum shift for
Right.
your team.
And ironically, and this is what I don't understand about yesterday's game, it still confuses to me how they started to pick up and steal the momentum going into halftime, and then they come out in the second half and they lay an egg. But they're beginning to get healthy as opposed to everybody else getting unhealthy. The Eagles are getting people back. They got Lane Johnson back. They got Boston Scott back. They got Miles Sanders back. In a few weeks, they'll probably have Alshon back. But I don't really understand what's going on as far as the coaching standpoint on both sides of the ball. I did like some adjustments that were made that I saw yesterday. I did see Carson Wentz throw a couple balls away. I did see that. I saw him getting rid of the ball quicker, which is a good sign. But on the defensive side of the ball, we're back in that recycling door, that turnstile door in that secondary. We're incurring the same issues that we've incurred the last several years. And I mean, you go out and you make a trade and you get a solid lockdown corner.
You need that big time.
You need that. But now you have to complement that. You have to make sure these other guys understand who he is and how we have to complement what's going on the backside of the ball. You can't keep getting tricked on the swing plays and the change of direction plays, which is killing us in the secondary. I mean, the front four and somewhat the front three, front seven, if you will, pretty much did their job yesterday. Eagles didn't give up a sack, but they did sack and put some pressure on Jared Goff in that game. So that's there. And I think that is the backbone of our defense, our front four, more so than the front seven, ideally the front four. And we've got some injuries there, and they still held up.
Yeah.
It's a matter of that secondary where too many guys were open. It's no discredit to Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, very good receivers. But considering some of the top receivers in the league,
they're not.
They're in that second tier.
Yeah, they're not
And
the top tier.
these are guys that you make look like they belong in that first tier. And it shouldn't be happening.
Well, another thing too is with your secondary. Shout out Will Parks. Once Will get healthy, that strengthens.
I think that's going to help.
Yeah, that strengthens because he's still a little having little hamstring issues. But I think he may be ready week 3 or 4. So that allows you to be a little more diverse because you can use him in a dime package, nickel package. You can use him as a strong safety, as a small linebacker. He's been a Swiss Army knife for everything that y'all been trying to do. It just so happens he had that injury, and it's nagging. You know what I mean, to not be out there. But I think that strengthens your secondary, and it kind of fills a need that's there. You know what I mean? It fills that hole a little bit to where you still should be looking for another corner.
Yeah.
Because you can't, but he's not going to play corner. He's going to play safety. So it's one of them things according to the package that you put out on the field.
Right, and when he comes back, unfortunately, it might mean that Jalen Mills may end up going back to corner.
Right.
You know, so like you said, we'll still need another corner. So before we close out with our week 3 picks, there was a question that we talked about last night amongst ourselves, the team of the show. And I understand Frank was a little upset because of the way the injury bug hit. And when I mentioned it to him, immediately he went right into but the Eagles are 0-2. And I said,
it wasn't a response.
Right.
I wasn't
that's fine. And I mentioned to him, I said, I wasn't talking about the records. I wasn't coming at you. All I wanted to know, and it was just something that popped into my head.
Right.
It was just one of those things where I said, now your starting QB is out. Who's your backup quarterback? And with him being out, does it matter? Okay. So again, to me, it does matter because I feel like it matters because when you lose a star caliber player or a starting quarterback in that right, it matters. He finally got it when I broke down to him and I mentioned about when I brought up the analogy and I brought up if LeBron was not on the Lakers right now, playing for the Lakers, would it matter? Would it make a difference?
Right.
Even with AD there, it's going to make a difference. So you chimed in and you told them that it does matter. And people, you have to understand, and I understand people are going to be fans, and like we always like to say here, at some points you have to take your fan hat off and analyze the situation for what it is. It matters.
It definitely matters.
And one of the things I mentioned to Frank, and let's just use the 49ers for example. You got Jimmy G, your starting quarterback. You've invested in him being your starting quarterback. He's technically, they say, 4 to 6 weeks. We all know, layman's terms, that's about 7-8 weeks total. Okay, because that's your starter, your quarterback for the future. He could very well be ready to go week 7, but then you get that questionable, doubtful. We don't want to rush him, so we'll see what happens later on down. We'll give him another week and see what happens.
And that's our bye week.
It matters, and that's the thing. It matters. Now, what if that bye week wasn't there?
Right.
It matters because now you have Nick Mullins, and like you said, Nick Mullins was serviceable. But the schedule that you just brought up,
we're gonna have to run the ball.
Is he serviceable enough where the coach will want to put the ball in his hands to try and not lose the game? I'm not even gonna go say win, to not lose those games. That's the difference. So, in my opinion, you have a star player or players that are down for multiple weeks. It matters.
It matters big time. It matters.
It matters a lot,
especially with the injuries.
With the injuries, the time frame,
it
and
matters.
You look over the course of the 4 major sports. This type of situation bodes the worst in the NFL. And people are probably saying, well, no, it could be bad for basketball too. I'm sure people are thinking that, people are saying that. But here's the difference. Without this bubble season, we look at basketball. Basketball is a longer season. 82 games in a regular season. Okay. The way the game has changed now in basketball, they got this load management nonsense and this and that. So you can buy yourself some extra time throughout the regular season. We're not even going to go into playoff runs or anything like that. We're just going to talk about regular seasons. All right? You can buy yourself some time. Give yourself a gray area, if you will, some wiggle room in basketball, in hockey, in baseball. You can do that because you got enough games throughout your regular season where you have that wiggle room. In football, you have a 16-game season, 17 weeks. So everybody gets a bye week. So everybody gets a week off. But it's only 1 week off. You only play football once a week. Right?
Right.
Now, getting back to that situation. Somebody's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. We're already in week 2. We're not even going to talk about records right now. But you're already in week 2. So, let's just say, let's play devil's advocate a little bit. And let's just say everything goes well, perfect, in a perfect world. Everything goes good. Jimmy G does come back to start week 7. You say 6 weeks, so we'll give him week 7. Now, you're halfway through the season.
Yeah.
Okay. Looking at that division, which is always a tough division, you could be at that point on the outside looking in, where those next 8 games, 5 of them count heavily. And I'm just throwing a number out there. Out of those 8, 5 could count very heavily. Because in those 5 games, possibly 2 of those 5 are probably going to be division games.
Yeah. Well, listen to this. So my man just chimed in too. So everyone, like I'll see if any of this resonates with you, because I just happen to be reading something.
Mm-hmm.
So my man Fred Boone, Big Fred, played for the Eagles, did his time in the league, and he made a statement. He said, "As an ex-player, I'll keep it short. For 3 seasons, I'll complain about Wentz. Now cats are calling me saying, I think you're right. As a middle linebacker, I always saw him different. He's a big problem." And you got to remember, he's coming from a middle linebacker standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
Goes back to what we said before. If somebody played the game, they see it with a different set of eyes than you and I, because we didn't play it on that level.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm looking at the Eagles in terms of what's next. In terms of, because now you got to start thinking, man, like, okay, if this dude can't get it done,
Mm-hmm.
how long in terms of games?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the beginning of the season. So will you be okay with going the remainder of the season, losing without taking him out of there and hoping that who you drafted is going to be, we got to move on from this?
And
what would be that game for you? What would be the game that you would think they should make that change? If we're at week 10 and your record is 4-6, you're going into week 11. So you're 4-6 going into week 11. Is it going to be placed on what the defense have or have not done that's causing the issue, or are you going to look to your quarterback to see, okay, well, what is our offense doing? It might be a little bit of both, but would you pull that trigger? Would you be willing to pull that trigger?
Me putting my coaching hat on, putting myself in that particular instance, I would say it would be a little bit of both for me.
Mm-hmm.
A little bit more on my quarterback, because if I look at the defense and see what they're doing, all I can really say is they're doing their homework. They're doing their due diligence.
Right.
At that point, going into week 11, I think I have to make a decision and say, you've got this week to make or break.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to give you week 11. I'm not going to pull you at halftime, nothing. I'm giving you week 11.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't happen in week 11, then we got to start preparing to make that change.
Now it's different now. Playoffs, they done added an extra.
Right.
They done added
And that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying I've got to give it to you. And I also
I think it comes down to the division and what's going on in the division.
I think it would come down to the division, and also I think it would come down to the moxie, if you will, of that particular player. Hence, in our situation, our quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do week 12, week 13? Do you suck it up and take your job back in week 13? Because it's not going to happen. If they give you pulled, it's not going to happen in week 12. You're going to sit in week 12 regardless.
Yeah.
So you got to look forward. You start at 11, you got to look forward to week 13. Now, what are you going to do for those 2 weeks to get back in the saddle? Is what I have to look at. So for me, it's a little bit of both. More so on our side with our quarterback. I give you that week to either stay in the saddle or be moved out of the saddle.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, in the back of my mind, I keep a kind of peripheral on you to see what's going on with you. What are you going to do come week 13?
Yeah.
Because I have time to say, well, we going with the young kid, but then we can go into the week 13 prior to that game practices, and I can say, well, he showed me something.
Right.
We got division games, like you said, we got division game coming up.
Mm-hmm.
He kind of knows them better. Let's see where he
is.
He
does.
You know, week 13. Let's see where he is and what happens.
We got a lot of football guys on here.
And then at that point,
they agreeing.
Yeah.
There's a lot of agreeing going on.
And then at that point in week 13, if it doesn't happen, then you have to start prepping the young person or whoever's coming behind them for 14, 15, and 16. You got to give them games. You have to.
Yeah.
At that point. And like you said, it is no disrespect to people. We also have to remember, and I appreciate all the football people chiming in,
Definitely.
but I have to say this to the non-football people or just to the sports fans. You have to remember, it's also a business.
Right.
And it's a business of winning.
Business first.
It's a business of winning. Okay? And we know a lot of times the coach is usually the first to be going to scapegoat, but it comes down to the players as well. They have to be held accountable. So, with that being said, you have a consensus from the show and from everybody tuned in, the football players that were tuned in, that, and we just brought it up with football because that's what we were talking about at a particular moment. But it covers all 4 sports.
It does.
And like I said, it hits football the hardest because you don't have as much wiggle room in football as you do in the other sports because the season is so short. It's shorter and it's a little bit more condensed than what it is. So with that being said, we got schedules here.
Yep.
Before we take our first break, and we talked to y'all for a good time. This is great conversation, great dialogue today. As you know, we are doing our football pool as we do every football season. We are getting ready to give you our picks for week 3.
Week 3.
Week 3 schedule will go up tomorrow after the Monday night game to close out week 2 tonight. Remember, folks, there are prizes on the line.
Yes, there are.
Okay? So we had one winner.
Without cutting you off, did you tally up your guys who put in?
I only got one.
Okay.
I don't know what's going on with people this week. I got one. I got one from
2,
LJ.
3, 4, 5, 6. I got 7 people.
Okay, I got LJ's and I haven't gone through it yet because I was trying to give some people Sunday to get them in or whatever. But I'll do LJ's. I'll do his tally today.
No rush. We'll do because I won't. We won't report who won until tomorrow.
Tomorrow anyway. Yeah. So I'll get some time into it today, and I'll get LJ's picks. So LJ, don't worry, you're still in. You're still in. Everybody's put in is still in. We just got to tally some things up. So there are prizes on the line. And again, folks, we're going to post the schedule. You don't have to. You can screenshot it, check off the boxes, and send it to myself at SportsRap_D on Instagram, or you can put it in the group page, SportsRap Radio Show on Facebook, or you can send it to Baldy, Aaron Baldy Moore on Facebook, or at Ball BALL75 on Instagram.
Yeah.
There's a prize that would. All we ask is that you go in order. However you do it, if you just typing them in, go in order of the schedule.
Yeah.
It's easy for us to get the tally and get your scores, get your picks right. Also, since we have Thursday games, picks have to be in by 4 p.m. Thursday. So you got from Tuesday, which I'll probably post the schedule somewhere between 9 and 10 a.m. So you got between Tuesday, let's say 10 at the latest, 10 a.m. Tuesday, 4 p.m. Thursday to get your picks in. All right, so there is a prize that we'll be giving out to each winner each week. All right, and we may even decide to keep track of who wins on week-to-week basis. If we get somebody that wins a few times or whatever, or a few people, we might have a bigger prize at the end. So let's get into what we're going to get into. Thursday, September 24th, Miami at Jacksonville. I am going to stretch here. I'm not feeling Fitzmagic. I'm going to go with Minshew Mania at home.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jacksonville. Okay. I'm going to go with Jacksonville.
Chicago at Atlanta. And I'm chuckling because I look at these schedules as I'm looking at football games the previous Sunday. So as I was watching games yesterday, I was looking at this schedule. Beforehand, initially, I was swinging towards Atlanta, although they lost week 1. And like I said, I knew the situation with Dallas and their injuries, and I just felt like Atlanta had enough to overcome. And, you know, with them starting with a new coach, week 2 early in the season, Atlanta might have got them. But I have since changed, and I'm going with the Bears.
I'm going with the Bears.
On the road.
I'm going to go with the Bears.
LA Rams at Buffalo. Tough one for me, although the Rams did beat the Eagles.
Listen, I like Buffalo.
I was getting ready to say, I'm going with Buffalo. Bills. I'm going with Buffalo as well. That defense out there is something. Yeah. And they added Stephon Diggs on offense. Josh Allen, their quarterback, showed me something yesterday too. The Washington football team at the Cleveland Browns.
That's
If I
a
was
toss
betting,
up.
this would be a push for me.
That's a toss up, but I think I'm going to go with Cleveland.
I think I'm gonna go with Cleveland at home.
I'm gonna go with the Browns.
I think the offensive side of the ball, Cleveland has a little bit more talent.
Yeah, look like they figured some stuff out that's working for them. I don't think Washington figured it out yet.
No, not yet. Tennessee at Minnesota. I like the Titans because of that running game. Derrick Henry. The Raiders at the Patriots. I like the Patriots there.
Yeah, I think Cam doing something special.
I still have some small issues with Derek Carr at that quarterback position as far as him being able to sustain and win games for them. San Francisco at New York.
Taking my Niners.
Even with the plethora of injuries that are on that 49ers side of the ball, I think this game is going to come down to coaching, and I got to go with San Francisco in that game.
I just think that that the Giants rely real heavy on Saquon Barkley. Without him being there, it's almost like when Duke Staley was like 60% of the offense.
And I told you earlier that they are going to have Devontae Freeman in for an interview, a look over, but they're in the fight with the Eagles. The Eagles got them first, so we'll see how that situation plays out. Once again at home, the Eagles are playing the Bengals. I'm picking them again because, like I said, I saw some things yesterday as far as on the offensive side of the ball with Carson Wentz throwing the ball away. And Cincinnati with a rookie quarterback, I think that bodes well for the Eagles' front four. Don't know how their offensive line is. It's not that great. But again, having a rookie quarterback, I think it bodes well for the Eagles and their front four. Pittsburgh at Houston, or Houston at Pittsburgh. I'm going with the young fella there, man. I like Houston on the road.
Yeah.
Okay. The Jets.
I go with Houston.
The Jets at the Colts.
I'm going with Indy.
I'm going with Indy at home.
Indy.
Yeah. Carolina at the LA Chargers. Major injury for Carolina. I got to swing with the Chargers at home.
Chargers.
Tampa Bay at Denver. Another key injury for the Broncos at starting QB.
Going with the Bucs.
I go with Tampa Bay on the road. Detroit at Arizona. I'm going with Kyler Murray.
I'm going with
Arizona at home. Dallas at Seattle. I'm going with Russ and the guys at home.
All right, listen to this. This is going to be my wild card.
That's going to be my wild card. Dallas over Seattle at home?
Nah.
Now, you can take...
all right, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go with Dallas.
But wait, before you make that
go
pick,
ahead.
Just look at the next game, because I was going to tell you, the next game
could
be your wild card.
Is a toss-up.
The next game could be your wild card.
The next two after that.
Right. So, for me, I'm going to take Green Bay on the road as my wild card for the Green Bay New Orleans game.
All right, I'm going to take Dallas. I'm going to take Dallas over Seattle, but I'm going to go with New Orleans.
Okay. And then in Monday night, next Monday, I'm going to go with KC over Baltimore. Because I just have a feeling, and it's been known, knowing Andy Reid, as long as he was here with the Eagles, his teams usually bounce back from close games or losses. They bounce back very well. So I'm going with them with that. So, folks, it is now 12:06. We went an extended period today because we had a lot to discuss. We're going to take our first break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about these NBA playoffs, and we're going to talk some Sixers and the work that they need to do in their offseason. You are tuned in to SportsRap, Heat 100 Radio. It's your boy D.
It's your boy Ball.
We'll see you on the other side. Just a few minutes.
Trying to get with this chick for a month now.
Folks, what's happening? I've been